everyone, so we're going to be doing the next example on input fields, and we're going to create this helper function, which is also known as a component, in order to help us out with clearing the form and just resetting it to different versions in order to clear the form. So let me set up the actual template here. I'll import useState. And then I'm going to set up the function. And I'll set up a button here. And what I want to do as well is I'm going to set up a useState. I'm going to set the version to 0. And then I'm going to set up some sort of function that will handle the reset. So this function will handle reset. And I'm going to set the version to increment by 1 every time they click on the button. So I need to do an on click here on the button in order to have some sort of interaction. And I'm going to call handle reset here. And I'll put reset for the button here. And I'm just going to save it so I could see what's going on. And right here we just have the button so far set up, but you can see that this works right now. We have the button. And what we want to do now is we want to set up the actual input field, but I'm going to set it up as it's known as usually a component or some sort of helper function if you deal with any other programming languages. But what I'll do is underneath this entire export, I'm going to set up a function that's separate, and I'll call it form. And what I'm going to do is here I'm going to deal with the name of the user and set name. And the useState, I will have it empty initially. And then I'm going to return something in here. And in the input field, I'm going to add some other attributes here and properties. So I will put value is equal to name. And what I'll do here is I will do an on change. And I will change the name every time the user enters in something or changes the text field, the input field. Value. And then what's going to happen is as they type it in, they're going to set the name to whatever the targeted value is. So instead of being empty, it will have some sort of value as the person types in their name. And the name variable can now be called, which I'll put under the input. I'll make it into a p tag here, and then I'll say hello, and then whatever the user's name is. And now that I have a separate function with this form, doing all these changes, then I can just call this function directly here in the main exported function. And what I could just do is, all I need to do, because it's on the same page, is just call form. And what I could do is to change the version each time the button is clicked here. All I have to do is just set up a key and make it version. So whenever we click on this button here, it's going to set a version and increment it by 1, but every time the version changes, basically it's going to reset the form to a default state. So the form will be reset to a completely empty form every time we click the button. So let me save this actual code so I could show you what's going on here. So when I go back to the browser, I'll refresh the page. You can see here we have that hello showing up, but we have nothing that's typed in yet. So what I could do is just type in my name, Monica, and instead of going delete, if you have a bunch of text here, instead of going back and deleting everything, you can just click reset, And you can see here that it empties everything, so we can start from fresh instead of having to always click the backspace. And this is how you, and this is another way how you can reset the actual form. And just by having this separate function here, it's usually known as a helper function, but because we're dealing with React or Next.js, they're usually known as components that are reusable, and we can just place, usually it's set up in a components folder, but I'll get into that in another video.